All right. So I'm going to start talking because a lot of us started things and then kind of stopped because we kind of gave up. Which I see. It happens. It's fine. So what we're asking is what percent of crew members survived? So I'm looking for like the probability, which would be the percent. What percent of crew members survived? So if we look at crew, that's this row right here. So how can I figure out what percent of crew members survived? Yeah, divide the survived by the total. So we're going to take our 212 survivors out of 885 crew members. What percent of crew members survived? So when you put it in the calculator, it'll be lots of decimals. Just give me 2 decimals, so it'll be your percent. So like here, I'll pull up the calculator. Give me a second. I get my calculator to load onto the right screen. So there we go. Boop. Whoa, tiny calculator. There we go. So we can do 212. That's 221. Come on. Over 885. And to get a decimal, you hit the 2 arrows, and it goes 2395, blah, 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 blah. To round, we're going to take 2 decimals as our percent, and we're just going to do a whole number percent. So it's going to be about 24% of crew. That's how I would round that. So 24% of crew. That doesn't seem too bad. Out of 885 people, 25% survived. I mean, it's not great. Like, ideally, we'd really love to be 100% of people survived. But let's see if that's the best. So now that we've kind of talked through that part, see if you figure out what the other percentages were. For the first class, the second class, third class. Who has the best probability of survival? Who has the best percentage of survival? Is it the crew? All right. So, what percentage of first class passengers survived? 62%. We did our 203 survivors out of the 325. I apparently can't write today. There we go. 325 total. So it gives us our 62%. What percentage of second class passengers survived? 41. And what percentage of third class passengers survived? 25%. Good parties, though, if you watch the movie. It's one of my favorite bands that played in that movie, in that party. So, did the crew have the best chance of survival? No. But if we look at the table, we can see the reason someone might think that is it had the most humans that survived. There were 212 humans that survived. So people can make that assumption and make that kind of guess incorrectly from the data, which is why we always have to use our data. We can look at the data too. I'm not going to give this to you on CODAP, but I have it here just so we can look at some things. Because it's really interesting to see. We can do these kinds of tables on CODAP. They've got here it divided into the same kind of thing, a two-way table. It's just kind of sideways. And what's really interesting is if I take and mix in gender and put that in the middle here, it's going to color code by gender. So we got almost all of the crew member women to survive, all but 3. First class women, there were only 4. But look at the third class. There are a lot of ladies who didn't make it there. Another interesting one, instead of gender, let's look at age. So purple is a child. All of the first and second class children, but not all the third class children. So this is real data from the Titanic. I know it was in the news again fairly recently for playgrounds, for people making choices. But this is the real data. And in the two-way table in our book, it's really easy to see it as just numbers. But I think for some reason when it's up in here like dots, where we're looking at kids, and we're looking at gender, looking at men and women. This is a person. That is one person right there. That is one person right there. These were real people who I'm sure love to be problems in math classes now. Take the data where we can get it. Okay, so there's all kinds of information, and that's one of those really kind of cool things about CODAP is we can make this seem more connected. We can find information. I'm sure at some point we're going to have enough information where I'm going to have people's names here, and I'll be able to say this person was Molly Brown. This person was Rose DeWitt Bukater. Jack won't be on the list. I know, it's an old movie. You probably even need to watch it. Whatever. Oh well. Okay, so looking at these kinds of tables, it has that same information as all those dots on CODAP. This is just a little bit easier to read, but we're still kind of analyzing like this. And it's good to look at our data as a whole, not just as percentages and all that stuff. But this is called a two-way table. A two-way table because it gives us direction data in 2 ways, vertical and horizontal. Okay, so we're going to work with another two-way table here. This one we're going to fill in with us. So this is on, oh, not page 46. That's the wrong thing. Page 86. That's my page numbers from last year. I just haven't updated. It's 86. And what we're going to do is we're going to figure out left hand and right hand dominance, which you probably know. And then, I don't know if you know this, you have an eye that you are more dominant with. And you typically don't notice this unless you do something like archery or marksmanship, but you favor one of your eyes. And there's a way to test for that. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your hands and you are gonna make a very, very, very small triangle in between your finger and thumb with your arms all the way out. And you are gonna lock in on something very, very small, like this. And I'm gonna get my triangle real, real small. And I'm gonna lock it in the middle of the triangle, and I'm gonna pull the triangle in, continuing to focus on that thing. And then as you bring it in, it's gonna go in front of one of your eyes. And that is your dominant eye. Which is a really cool, very random fact for you. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill in this table with us. So, how many people had their left eye be the one your hand wound up on? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 of us total. Which means how many people had right eye? Can we tell without even having to raise hands? How many people? 13. Got any lefties in here? Left hand? 2. We love that. Usually I have to put my mom in here because my mom's a lefty. So I'll have to pretend to be my mom sometimes. All right, so how many right hand people do we have? Can I tell from up there without having to count? 15. That's a 5. All right, my 2 lefties. Did either one of you have left eye as well? Right eye? Okay. With that information, can I figure in the rest of my table here? I was going to say, how many left hand dominant, right eye dominant do we have? 2. Yeah. So without all the information, I can fill it in. I just need pieces. So I'm going to fill it in. So we got 2. So of my left eye dominant people, how many were right-handed? 4. And my right hand, right eye is how many people? It's going to be 11. So this is a table about us. This is us. We were the cases about this information. So the first question here, real going to be easy to figure out. What percentage of the class is both left hand and left eye dominant? 0. That's what happens. And I know that these questions aren't right there. The questions are on the next page, just so you see it. You have all that space to write. You can use that space to write, but like these actual questions are on the next page. What percentage of the class is left eye dominant? So now we're going to find a percent. How are we going to find the percentage of which of us, how many of us are left eye dominant? 4 over 17. Yeah, and we can use our calculators on that. So 4 over 17. Not that I don't trust you, I'm just double checking it. Yeah, 24%. About 24%. 24% of us are left eye dominant. Left eye dominance is actually significantly more common than left-handedness. But it's just one of those things that nobody ever tests for their eye dominance unless you're doing marksmanship or archery, because that's going to be the eye you aim with. And so you have to counter for that when you're aiming. I shoot archery in my garage, which is how I do that. Okay. So the rest of these questions kind of become invalid now that we have 0 that are both left hand and left eye. But we can use the data of the class that's on the bottom half of page 87 to compare theirs. So it's looking at the data that we've collected and kind of analyzing that. So it asks a few other questions on there. So I'd love for you guys to look through the questions on page 87, especially the kind of middle of the page. We're talking about, could we collect data to see if gender or athleticism made a difference? Could we collect data for that? Maybe. More, that's going to be a matter of how could we collect the data? How could we show the data? And then there's another class's data down below where you can do these percentages again just to practice them. Because we don't do a ton of calculation in this unit. We don't. There's not tons of calculatory stuff going on. It's more analysis. But we are going to need to be able to interact with this table and interact with the data to be able to figure out the analysis of our information. We are going to be doing analysis of data as part of that project. So, since we need to learn how to analyze data and practice analyzing data, homework 6, which is not page 44 in the book, it's the one that is all about the Olympic jumpers. That is, that's hurricanes. So it's page, let me see what page it is. 84 in the book.
Excuse me.
Hang on a second. Give me just a few minutes. I'm still talking. Okay. So page 84 in the book has the data. On Canvas, in the homework assignment, there's also a link to the CODAP. There's not a link to the CODAP, so I don't have a CODAP for it. But you can use CODAP if you'd like to. We learned recently, don't put the word in, just put a 0 for the ones that are zeros. If you put the word in, the graphs get real confused. But you can absolutely use CODAP to do your analysis. You can also do it by hand if you want to. If you're just doing box and whiskers, we can do that. If you're just looking at averages, you can do that. This is, again, a matter of opinion. Just give me data to back it up. Okay, so you can use this time to do that homework. I know this chapter has a lot of homework assignments. I'm still going to recommend you don't go ahead, especially not up to the arm span one. I don't have that updated to this year's date again. So don't work too far ahead, because you're outpacing my ability to update. But other than that, that's all I got for you today. Okay? So use this time. You guys should not have to do homework for this class at home.